So during lockdown, businesses faced heaps of finance and HR challenges and that they'd never experienced before. It felt like we had to learn a whole new vocabulary of terms and phrases and schemes and things. And we had to learn them pretty damn quick and roll them out to be able to help support our clients. So we just wanted to be able to share some of the insights that we've gained in the finance and HR world, because it's a good way to be able to share kind of some things that are actually happening. It's really easy kind of hypothetically or looking at what the government says, but it's probably really helpful to understand other businesses in North Surrey, in Kingston, around our area. What are they doing? How are they surviving? How are they adapting? So it feels a bit more real. So I'm Sandra Porter, I'm the Managing Director of the HR department, which is a HR consultancy franchise. We look after Kingston, Surbiton and Elmbridge, and we've got hundreds of small, medium-sized business clients across North Surrey. And Bruce, do you want to explain yourself?
Morning all, morning Graham, haven't seen you for a while. My name is Bruce Burrows, I'm an accountant. We run a accountancy firm, we take care of small limited companies. And we do everything, range of services. So supporting small limited businesses around North Surrey and Southwest London.
Super. Over to you, Bruce.
So this time, March last year, I've told this, the government did what? There were a huge amount of financial packages that got released on everyone, and it was almost continual. So from an accountant's point of view, it was actually a really interesting time to be an accountant in practice, which is a strange thing to say because on the news it was all the numbers were going the wrong way, and what was happening is every 2 minutes Rishi Sunak was popping up and saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and the general feeling around the accountancy press was they've done what? So and that's why I've titled the slide "The Government Did What." So there was an unprecedented range of support packages that were made available, and the biggest one, furlough, was a huge effect. I remember when that came out, first thing I did was ring Sandra and said, "What does furlough mean?" So, but there was a huge amount of furlough, which a lot of people have benefited from. But they also did bounce back loans, C-bills. VAT deferment, which is still have an effect today, even though it was for a short period back in 2020. They had rate grants, they had discretionary grants. There's SSP support. They used it as a time to to launch a Kickstart scheme, which is still ongoing, and SEISS, which may or may not affect you, but that is a self-employment income support scheme, of which the last payment is coming out soon. So they did they released a huge amount of information very, very quickly, and just to give you an idea of what of how much information they released on the furlough payments. That scheme, we would normally have one briefing as accountants with that, and maybe a revision 6 months later. Since that's been released, there's been nearly 50 revisions of that scheme. So there is a huge amount of information that they did do a huge amount of work and a huge amount of support packages. So that's that slide. If you go, next slide, please. Disturb. There you go. So there are three broad areas that remain. Furlough is still ongoing. That runs now till the end of September. Whether they increase that or not, I think, will be largely dependent on the numbers they see in the economy and what they hear. So as they see people, or as you see economy figures pick up, I think you'll find that will disappear. It reduces. It's currently at 80%, went back up to 80%. It stays at 80% at the end of June. It then goes to 70% in July. And then August, September, it's down at 60%. So the thing to remember about furlough is one of the changes that came in is that you only have 14 days from the end of the month to claim. So, and if you wanted to start furloughing someone, as long as they were employed back then, you can actually still furlough someone. So, is what you can do. So it's still around. That's still going strong. Bounce back loans and C-bills have now become recovery loans. So, sorry, I should rephrase that. The C-bills and the bounce back loans have stopped, but what they've done is they recognise there's still a requirement for working capital, so they put in recovery loans. Recovery loans it might sound new, but it's not. It's a rehash of an old scheme, and broadly what it means is that you need to you still need to go through the bank's approval process. So the banks have approval processes that are laid down by the FCA. You still need to go through all of those. The main difference with a recovery loan is that 80% of the amount that you are looking to borrow is guaranteed by the government. So what any lender will look for is two broad things. One, that you can repay it, And two, what security am I getting? And what you tend to find is that people can repay the loan but might not have the security, so the government steps in and provides the security. It might sound great, but what I would say is that, one, this is a new scheme, and the banks are still catching their breath from the bounce back loans and the CBILS. It takes them a while to understand how to work these things and find someone that understands security to be able to push it through their systems. So that does take them a while to do that. Second thing to remember is that with bounce back, the approval rate was about 95%, which is huge in loan territory. And the reason it's not 100% is there are people around there that can't spell their name correctly. So you only needed to submit two pieces of information for a bounce back loan besides your name correctly. One was the amount you're turning over and how much money you wanted, and then you got the money. It was that simple. So a huge approval rate. For CBILS, the approval rate was in the 20s. And that's because they needed to go through their usual checks, is what they needed to do. So whilst the recovery loans are great, all I'm saying is that if you need one, be prepared to do quite a bit of hard work to get one. So, and the final thing that's still ongoing are local grants. So at the moment, they're restricted to those professions generally that had to close or do some form of close. But keep an eye on the local council, because what you'll find is that they've all got caveats that they have an element of discretionary amount. So what you'll find will happen is the local council that you're based in, that your business is registered in, it doesn't matter if you're a ratepayer or not, as and when they discharge funds that they've been told to discharge funds to, so in terms of people that have had to close, when, depending on what the take up is, there will be further discretionary grants that they will be allowed to pay out to businesses that they decide in the local area. So it allows them to say, well, actually, I've got a lot of, say, accountants in my area. We want to support those, so we're going to allow them. So just keep an eye on your council web page. So the thing to look for in Kingston is Kingston Council COVID business support, and they'll have a couple of pages there. So those are the two things in terms of to get you up to date with where the financial packages are. And obviously Kickstarter is still ongoing, and you can still claim SSP for the 2-week support. So that's me. So Sandra, over to you.
So, I mean, my goodness me, what a crazy 12 months it's been from an employment perspective. I think when we first went into lockdown, we probably worked 24/7 trying to keep up to date with what was going to happen, and the impact of furlough, helping everyone understand what a furlough was, and how that impacted various employees in various different situations. What we have seen, though, in the last 12 months, above obviously furlough and SSP and all that stuff, is a massive, massive rise in employment disputes. So even though most people haven't been working because they've been on furlough and at home, tribunals are going through the roof. So we've got grievances, we've got discrimination cases, loads of tribunals, lots of people putting in data subject access requests. So the GDPR access to information request that you can do as an employee. People wanting to see everything that's on their record, every email that's ever mentioned their name since they started in employment. It is feisty. So at the minute, court cases are currently not being listed until 2023 because they're on their knees with cases. So there's been a lot that we've had to do to support our clients to make sure that they are as well protected as possible. So I'm the bringer of joy, aren't I? The bringer of joy. So getting your house in order. So I'm going to look back and then look forward. So when we just look at what on earth has just happened, the disputes that are coming through are largely because of misunderstanding about furlough arrangements. So why was I chosen to go on furlough when Bobby that sits next to me wasn't chosen to go on furlough? Things like that, but lots of that. Redundancy selection. So obviously we've had loads of our clients that have gone through the process over the last 12 months of restructuring their teams. And rightly so, a lot of the time, they're trying to make sure they are set up to be successful and survive as possible. But therefore, there are always going to be lots of questions about why have I been chosen? Why have I been selected? Have they followed the right process? Have they made the right payments? Blah, blah, blah. And that was complicated with furlough because they did change the rules about whether you could work furlough during a contractual notice period and things. So it's been a bit complicated, but therefore, hence leading to many disputes. Obviously, health and safety breaches. people feeling that have they been expected to attend a workplace or a customer premises or go to see a client that they didn't feel safe in. And as an employee, you've got a responsibility to provide a safe working environment. And then consultation with changes to contracts. So where people have shortened their hours or changed their place of work or whatever, have they gone through the right process to be able to make those changes? Fraught with issues and opportunity. So things you can do, because I want this to be as practical as possible. Tidy up your loose ends. So as Bruce mentioned with the furlough scheme and all of the number of revisions to it, you absolutely have to keep furlough agreement letters signed, ideally on file for 5 years. And we know that there are loads of businesses out there that didn't document what the agreement was. It was kind of just done through conversation. But it's really important you get those documents on file and hold on to them in case there's any later dispute. So confirm your approach regarding outstanding holiday. Had loads of issues on this even yesterday. Lots of people obviously accrued all of their annual leave last year, but nobody's had the chance to go anywhere or do anything with it. The government said you could carry forward outstanding leave for 2 years, but then a lot of businesses then haven't said anything. So it's really important that businesses say, this is how we're going to deal with it. Are you going to allow people to carry it forward then? Is that what we want to do? Is there going to be an element of buyout? What about if people want to book it at the same time as soon as they release the traffic lights next month? So what's really important in that is just communicate what you're doing. Tell people what the plan is going to be and how best to manage that, particularly just before they release the traffic lights for travel. The third thing is about follow the redundancy consultation process, which is a bit of a no-brainer, but being sure you know exactly what the process is and that you are being so attentive to the detail of that process that you don't get caught out by just not giving 48 hours notice or just not allowing someone to be accompanied. It makes it automatically unfair. So just don't put yourself at risk. If you don't know the process, give us a call, we'll help you. But just make sure that you're not assuming that everything will just be okay, because it possibly won't. Okay, tread carefully regarding enforcing return to work expectations. This is the biggie at the minute. And we can all understand why. So as people are starting to think about coming back to Barwell or to wherever their offices might be, we need to be very thoughtful about setting an expectation of when are people expecting employees to come back to work, if they are office-based contracts, and allowing people to be able to get their head around that. It's quite a transition to come back to work. Some people may genuinely still be feeling nervous, either about the commute or about being in the office space, or maybe have heard that other people have had coronavirus or that their family members might have coronavirus. They might genuinely be feeling very nervous. So you need to communicate a lot about how are people feeling, are they in any way vulnerable that you're not aware of, and then keeping in touch with them as we go through the next couple of months. We've got lots of clients that are saying between May the 17th and kind of towards the end of June, they're encouraging people to come back a couple of days a week. And then from the end of June, everyone's back to the office. But we also have a lot of clients that are saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're actually going to move to a different style of working. We're changing the office hours. Actually, we want everyone in the office Tuesday to Thursday, but Monday, Friday's flexible. Or we're going to have these core hours. So it's really important as a business owner, you know how you want your business to operate, and then communicate effectively around that so everyone understands what the expectations are and can keep up with you. So it's a bit slowly catch your monkey. You need to kind of go slowly, make sure you're talking more probably than you feel is necessary, and help people kind of adapt to that change. The next point, ensure that you know and fulfill your health and safety obligations. As an employer, you have to provide a safe working environment. That is just as true if they're working from home as it is if they're working in your office. So you need to complete a COVID-19 risk assessment. You need to understand if people are saying, I want to continue working from home, genuinely, have they got the Wi-Fi speed? Have they got the tech available? Are they sitting at a desk, or are they sitting on a bed with a laptop? We need to make sure that it is a safe, productive working environment. Otherwise, you're negligent of your responsibility to provide that for them. So it's absolutely appropriate for you to conduct a risk assessment on have they got the right space, but also can they do their job from home, or do they need more supervision than that? Have they got the Wi-Fi strength? Can they genuinely work and collaborate with other team members effectively? And it's your call. as a business owner. It's your call to decide whether that's appropriate or not. The third one is about retaining your audit trail regarding decisions leading to redundancies, processes, payments. When we look at when disputes in tribunal are lost by the employer, it's often because they haven't been able to evidence the audit trail of their thinking. So we've just been going through one with a client that's currently in the process of making somebody redundant. They're in a unique role, but we've had to put a lot of work into making sure that the explanation of why that role now, why that person in that role rather than any other role, why is that going to be made redundant, and making sure that that thought process is documented via email, via documentation, via presentations, so that it is so that we have really nailed down that and would be able to clearly explain that in the event of a dispute, which we think is coming. So, so ideally you get all of that tidied up, yeah, get all your things on file, you do your risk assessments, you're communicating like crazy with your team about how you're going to expect them to return to work and how they feel about those things. But now we've got, hopefully, looking to the future, can start planning how we're going to absolutely thrive post-lockdown. So the number of key areas, the structure and skill sets in your team, how you harness a broader talent pool that might not have ever been available to you before, focus on priorities, pay and reward, and performance management. I can't think you can do a HR presentation without talking about performance management. So these, I just want to talk a few things that some of our clients are doing literally today that I think is going to make a big difference to how they're going to succeed. You need to create the ideal structure for your business reality now. I feel that genuinely some business owners are drifting out of lockdown and quite kind of unconsciously just going back to the structure they had before. That's bonkers. We should use this as an opportunity to say, right, based on our new reality, different products, different customer expectation, whatever it might be, what is the ideal structure for my business that's going to make us as efficient and successful as possible? So, and sometimes you kind of need to scrap your current structure and almost try and start to write it with a fresh pair of eyes. And that can be hard. Sometimes it might be good to get people around you that you trust to say, actually, if we were starting this business today, how would we structure it? What skills would we need? Rather than just going with what you've got. And that's not because I want to make people redundant. I've done enough of that in the last year. But if you want to be really successful, then help yourself be able to compete really well by taking the chance to properly structure it and getting the right skills in place. Secondly, articulate your business vision and goals for the next 12 months. I think sometimes it's easier to assume that our teams know exactly what we're thinking. And this is when people return to the office, potentially, it's a really good opportunity to say, okay, we have been through the craziest of years. Now, where are we at? How are we doing? Try and reassure them if they're feeling insecure about their employment, but also, what are we going to do now? What are the big things we're going after? What does success look like? So they get really clear about where the business is heading. And that third point, create line of sight. I always call it line of sight, but how do you articulate, this is where we're going as a business, and therefore tomorrow, Bobby, when you come into the office, focus on doing A, B, and C. Otherwise, people will do the things they prefer to do, or the easiest things, rather than the things that are actually going to make a big difference. So be really clear. We want to go after that, and therefore your focus for the next few months, whatever, is to do A, B, and C, and then hold them accountable for that. And then utilize pay reviews. We've had a number of clients who have actually done pay reviews this April, which we weren't necessarily expecting. So an average of probably 2.8% as a pay review, some going as high as 5-6% for pay review, and some doing none. And that's understandable. Every industry has had to react differently. But you do need to use your pay reviews, bonus structures, commission schemes to incentivize the right behaviors if you want to come accelerating out of lockdown. Use everything you've got available to you, and then hold meaningful performance and development conversations. After this call, I'm spending the whole day with a client setting objectives with his team to make sure they're really focused on what and how should they be doing what they need to do, recognizing success, but hold them accountable for delivery. So that's kind of my summary of what on earth has just happened and what you need to focus on going forward. Bruce, I'm going to hand back over to you.
Thank you very much. So following on from Sandra's part in terms of how things change and getting people back in, that will also have effect on your financial standing or your finances of the business. And as support measures have changed as well, you need to think about what you need to do to avoid cliff edge scenarios, because we're seeing this already where we've got clients who are restaurants that are opening back up again, and all of a sudden they've got a huge working capital situation going on, and they've got lots of challenges in how to deal with that, notwithstanding all the HR issues and all saying hello to each other again as they start to come back in. So what we'd encourage you to do with that type of stuff, and what we've done with our clients that's been very successful, is to get a good financial insight of where you were and where you are. One of the series of questions that we'd encourage you to ask in terms of reviewing that. So is to have a look at the following questions, and I'll go through them bit by bit. But have a look at the following questions, and because these are the type of questions where we're finding people are struggling and where they're causing issues. So the first one, quite generic: are you spending less time running the business and more time worrying about it? Because right now where you should be is more time getting on and doing it. Because as confidence returns, you need to be ensuring that you're starting to do a lot more, because everyone's expecting everyone to carry on being busy. For those owners, in terms of where they're structured for their dividend to take out to become a large part of their income, have dividends being paid without necessary reserves. So just focus on that, because it can create tax effects. Might not create a tax effect now, but it can create a tax effect for you in January next year when you do your personal tax return. So just be aware of that. Do I need to restructure something there? Is there something that needs to go on there? To have a look at that. Have you been forced to use loans or grants to cover overheads? And what we're encouraging you to do there is to look at your fixed cost structures. A lot of people during lockdown took an opportunity at the start of lockdown to review all of that and get it in order. And some people were fortunate enough they were able to just shut the door and walk away to some degree. But have a look at it, because if you're using grants and loans to support your fixed overhead structure is incorrect, and it needs looking at. Are you in a significantly worse shape now than before the pandemic? Now, everyone's slightly different, and I can't think of, we have nearly 600 clients, and I can't think of one business that's exactly the same. And even businesses that are in the same industry had different challenges and doing things different ways. And the reason for that is that every business is structured slightly differently. Some people were heavily geared in terms of debt and had issues there. Other people weren't heavily geared, but had a large staff payroll. So everyone's slightly differently. And what we'd encourage you to do there is that if you are slightly worse, just recognise it and look at and start highlighting those areas. So Sandra used a very interesting word before, drift. And what we're encouraging you to do is to not drift, is to be conscious about where you are and have a look at the numbers, because your numbers will tell a story. The last two are more to do with if you are more towards liquidation. So are you struggling to pay debts as and when they fall due? So that leads towards a legal term, which I'm sure Graham's aware of, with regards to insolvency proceedings. So there are two tests of insolvency that you should be aware of, or what business directors need to be aware of. Is one, whether you're trading negatively, if your balance sheet, when you add it all up, if it's a negative at the bottom. But the second one is, can you pay your debts as and when they fall due? Because if you have a negative balance sheet, but you know that there's a contract coming in and you can pay your debts back and you can trade your way out of it, it's okay. But it's the first indicator that if you're hiding from suppliers, then you need to be aware of that, because that cannot continue. And the third one is the last one is have the honest conversation. If all support was withdrawn, where are you? And if there's no product there, or there's no service there, then it's generally better to get on with it now than it is to leave it. So those are the questions that we'd encourage you to ask in those scenarios. So what can you do about it? Look at effective scenario planning. So this comes back to, if you have a set of financials and you're expecting your numbers to go up, is what is the effect of those numbers? My sales will go to the roof, but my overhead structure doesn't allow me to deal with it. So just be conscious of that. So look at effective scenario planning, and and run more than one option. So run a good option and run a bad option. And what I normally encourage clients to do is to run an option where they will feel happy. So it's not a. What I mean by that is that where will they? At what level will they stop putting their effort into their business? So what effort do they think? Well, crikey, I'm just working. I'm not getting anything for this. So run some effective scenario planning. You should have enough history from hopefully before pandemic to be able to do that. So I encourage you to do that and take some time to review it. The secret with I'm a management accountant at heart. So what that means is that I've spent all my life producing management information. That's what I'm chartered to do. So and the secret of that is once you get that information, what makes it, what the really powerful step is to review it. Take some time to go and review it. You know, produce it on a Monday, look at it on a Tuesday. You'll come up with a much broader insight into what you're looking at. Do some cash flow forecasting. A lot of people find cash flow forecasting very, very hard. Remember KISS, keep it simple and stupid. You know, I've got 12 people on the payroll. My payroll bill is 40 grand. You know, that's the level of detail you need. So look at that. And I encourage you when you're looking at cash flow forecasting is, depending on the business, is look at different time periods. So with some businesses, what we will do is we'd run the next 14-day cash flow forecasting to get them out of a hole, and then we move into weekly, and then we move into monthly. You know, so and to be perfectly honest, by the time you get into monthly, if you haven't got the first 20 columns right, what you're doing in monthly is incorrect. But keep it simple and stupid, and just that way you can work with the document, because it's a live document. You're going to produce it, you're going to review it, you're going to agree it, you're going to get your actions done, and you're going to come back and look at it the next day or the day after, because things change. But do a cash flow forecast. And also do a complete set of financial statements. So, and what I mean by that, don't just do the cash flow forecast, do a profit and loss, and put together a balance sheet. As businesses grow, and as you grow, you become more complicated as a business. And what is on your balance sheet can have a much bigger effect to you the bigger you are. And sometimes you can find things there that interrupt your business flow, or can make you look better in the eyes of lenders, or need categorizing slightly differently, and just need looking at. So we'd encourage you to look at all of your statements together. That's especially important as you become a bigger business, so that you understand what is on your balance sheet and what opportunities you have there. So one of the things that we've looked at doing, it's a bit of a tax scenario, but we're looking at changing how the accountant rules that we do to produce a set of accounts. So instead of using this rule, we use this set of rules, and these set of rules allow us to value things in a different way, and it can potentially put a business with losses in a better position, because what it does is it recognizes those losses and it goes as an asset, and that has been very, very helpful for some of our clients. But we can only do that when we look at all those documents together. So those are the three things that we'd encourage you to look at. So I'm just going to get my slides in order. So what next? Where are we? So once you've got a good understanding of where you have been, you can obviously put your plans together for where you want to be, and what you want to do in the next period. And as Sandra was saying, a large part of that is communication with your team and how you're going to bring those people with you. And we're seeing a lot of businesses have become slightly leaner. Their payrolls aren't necessarily as big. They may have got consultants in there. What's really interesting is we're seeing a lot more people who are more agile. They're faster to react. They all had to go home and work from home. They still had to run a business. And whilst that would have been a nightmare 2 years ago, actually they're still trading and they found a way through. And that means that agile mindset is there. And we're seeing that quite a lot. They're able to innovate and adapt. They've got round things. They're using technology, and it's working for them. They've realised that, and we've seen this in our office as well. We had an individual that loved printing things, and we don't normally need to print things so much. It doesn't need to happen. I can just store that and it's there, and I can use it and it works. So it's a very small indication, but what that's done is it's made the individual a lot more efficient, time efficient, in terms of what they're using, because they've just innovated and adapted. And it's a really simple thing, but it's actually worked. But you add all those little things up, and it does make a difference. The other thing we're seeing is generic businesses have been better to communicate with their clients. The ones that are still around have been able to communicate, and they've been able to talk to clients. And that is a really, really important thing. And what we'd encourage you to do is to continue to communicate, is use that. Because if you've gone through the "how do I speak to my clients, they're gone" scenario, then you've generated methods of doing that. So continue to use it. So would encourage you to continue to use the lessons you've learned in a hard environment. Continue to use them going forward, so that they're still there. So, final thing: how can you exploit that? So now you've got your plan, you've got your people in the right place. You knew what your problems were. You know what your problems are coming. What are you going to be? How are you going to be doing that? And in that plan, you will have some services that were petered off. Things that you thought was a big sell, your clients have managed to do without. So we'd encourage you to recognise that. And there was something that you were providing that caused an awful lot of effort, did produce a lot of money, and actually you finally got rid of it and no one really noticed. Well, carry on doing that. That's a good thing. Quite a few people are seeing products that have come out of this where they are able to sell things. A cracking example is everyone selling floor coverings to if you walk into a supermarket, everyone's got floor covering. Huge amount of business going on there in the printing industry, and that's fantastic. It'll be interesting to see, does that translate into advertising, or does that translate into something else? So if there's a new product or you've seen something, use it. Client communication again. Clients sort of like the fact, the level of communication they've had. We've definitely seen it. We've seen a lot of our clients saying, "Thank you for being there, sending me that newsletter." You write a newsletter, for all you people that write a newsletter thinking, "Crikey, I'm writing this again, I hope someone's reading it." We had some great feedback on ours, and it's just because people are at home, they actually read things and actually thought, "Oh, I heard that on the news. I've got a newsletter that's mentioned it there, and I'm helping to tie things together." So keep that client communication. And if you did it and you got it right, have a look at what your competitors are doing, because they might not have got it right. And we're seeing a couple of opportunities where people are changing their lifestyle and businesses are coming up for sale. And that's generating an opportunity for someone, because people have said, "Do you know what? I'm not interested in continuing to do that. I'm happy to sell." And that generates opportunities. So if you're still in the game and you still want to grow your business, don't close your eyes to that scenario. It can be a very, very successful tool to do that. A lot of business owners will go down the route of growing their business and starting and growing it organically, and they've been very successful at doing that, and they won't appreciate and they won't naturally look at the purchase option. But look at the purchase option; it's there. People will be changing how they do business and what they want to do and whether they want to continue to do it. So there will be more opportunities around. And when you look at them, also look at their products and the services and what did they do? Because did they react like you? Is there something that you could learn from how they did things? And if they didn't react like you and you feel you reacted very, very well, is there an opportunity? Are they not addressing an element of their market space that you could just step into? So just be alive to those types of things, because what's happened is we've had seismic shifts, and seismic shifts produce opportunities. New things become available. So the whole point is to say what else is available for me if I'm still in the market. So, Sandra, who will win in all of this?
We think, obviously, it's been fascinating and stressful, but the businesses we think will win are those that are consciously interrogate their reality and can adapt to and embrace the opportunities, because I think it is the consciously piece. We've both talked about it. It's like we can see businesses that are drifting and just kind of going with what they've got, and we've got others that are absolutely grabbing it and really interrogating all of their numbers, interrogating what they think their business should be and making that so. And we think those that will win will ultimately be those businesses that are very consciously making their new reality work for them. So interesting times. So obviously we've talked about kind of getting the right team around you. Obviously we've kind of shared some of the things that we've been doing with our clients and hopefully some different little case studies. I think, to Bruce's point earlier, it's been really amazing how many MDs have phoned and said, you know what? Because the ops manager was on furlough, I started doing that and I had no idea they were running that report and I had no idea they were running those numbers, which are useless, and I had no idea that. And they've completely stripped out all of these inefficiencies that just kind of grow organically in a business over time. It's fascinating that the opportunity that's given many MDs to really kind of get to grassroots again with their business and see what's happening and being able to make some really, really good decisions to ultimately make them a lot more leaner and more efficient. So fascinating.